to thank the music department for some amazing music so far and putting the hard work in to bless us this morning. Amen. I want to also welcome the parents. I'm glad you guys are here as well for Parents Weekend and all that we're doing, and it's good to see you guys out there as well. Man, let's see, I was, as I'm sitting here getting ready to come up here, I just realized a couple of things. I realized that this is, I believe, the third time that I've been here for church since school started. And I'm like, wow, and it's not because I'm avoiding you guys, all right? It's, there's a lot of things in between, like senior survival and Bible conference and a wedding and schooling and all these different things that have been happening, here at the beginning of the school year. And I was just like, no way, I feel like I've had to have been here more than that. And one of those other times, one of the three, I was preaching. And so I figured they just asked me to preach again today so that I would come. But thank you, and I'm blessed to be here, and it's been cool. And the other thing I realized in realizing that was that I missed it. It's really good to be back. Last night, worshiping at Vespers with the seniors, and this morning with the music department, and the sharing of all the things that have happened so far this weekend has just been this is a good reminder of why I love this place, and this church, and these schools on this campus. And so we have a special thing here, for sure. Amen? Yeah. So I hope you feel this as well. So let's start. 2 months ago, I was in San Diego, and as I was in San Diego, I go out there a few times a year to work on school, basically, and try to finish up this master's that I've been working on. And so I'm out there 2 months ago, the beginning of August specifically, and I'm out there, and I go out there. The last 2 times my wife has been able to go with me, which has been really cool, because then it's not as lonely and boring when I'm out there. But what it translates is to, basically I go to school, and I sit in class for 8 hours, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And I come, I get done, and I go to dinner with Taryn and my daughter Story, and they just tell me about their crazy adventures for the day. They're like, oh, I'm like, what'd you do? And they're like, oh, I went to the beach, and we went to Balboa Park, and we walked by this really cool park, too, that we saw near the water, and we met all these nice people, and they're like, how was your day? And I was like, well, I sat in class, and then a little while later, I sat in class some more, and I looked out the window at the ocean, and it was just and it's good. I'm learning so many things, but they know San Diego so well now, and they just went with me a couple weeks ago again. And so in the evenings and on some off days when we have a chance to schedule those, they're showing me all the cool spots and the good food and stuff like that. And so I tell you that to say that 2 months ago, or in August, when we were out there, I'm having this conversation with them over dinner, and we're talking about their day, and they tell me that they took a little break and they stopped into this coffee shop, and as they're hanging around, my daughter, she's super busy. She's always moving around and introducing herself to people and stuff like that. And so obviously everybody around her is focused on her. And how could you not? She's super cute. If you haven't seen her, I'm biased, but whatever. So she's walking around just being her cute self. And these people near her start talking with her, and they get into this conversation, and they start talking about what each other are doing, why, it turns out they live there. They ask why she's visiting, and it's because, I'm in school and all this stuff. And they're like, well, where are you staying? And we're like, oh, it's a hotel down the road. And they're like, that's really cool. And they start talking more, and they say, where's he going to school? And they talk about the school at Point Loma, and they're like, oh, we have friends that live near there. And it turns out they're they actually house people sometimes from out of town and from out of the country sometimes that come here for school, and they open up their homes and stuff like that. And they're like, maybe we could set something up and you wouldn't have to pay for a hotel. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And then she's like, and maybe we could even offer that. We live a little further outside the city, but that might be an option. And so as she's telling me this, though, I'm like, that's really nice. Like, isn't it? Like, strangers, they've never met before, and they're offering their home and their friend's home to this woman and this little girl and a guy they've never met, you know? And I'm like, and in my mind when she's telling me this, I'm like, oh, that's nice. But I don't stay with strangers. Like, that's just kind of like a rule that I kind of try to live by. And, you know, and I was like, that's weird, but I was like, that's very nice of them. So we kind of put it out of my mind and we go on. And fast forward to 2 weeks ago when I'm out in I'm getting ready to go out to San Diego again. And we start looking at hotels and we're like, you know what? What about Tara and Steve? I was like, who's Tara and Steve? They're like, the people I met in the coffee shop. And I was like, I don't know them. And again, like, I don't stay with strangers. Like, this is weird. And let alone do I take, like, my family to stay with strangers. I don't know, I don't feel like that's a safe way to operate. And so I was thinking these things, but I was like, well, shoot them an email. You know, they exchange contact information. She shoots them an email and she says, I figured they'd just be like, oh, sorry, we can't put something together. You know, and I figured we'd chalk it up to they were being nice at one point, and that was it, you know? And so I'm waiting for that email to come back. Hey, sorry, but we can't pull it together. But it was really nice meeting you. And the email comes back, and they say, we'll get on it. I'll call my friends, and we'll find a place for you. I was like, what? Really? Okay. Well, let's see where that goes. And so they start calling, and like a week later, we talk to them a little bit more, and they basically, they find out the friends aren't open, and they're like, but you can come stay with us. We have this camper in the driveway. You can stay in there. And so we're like, all right, let's go for it. And so we land in San Diego, get a rental car, and we're driving there, and all this stuff starts running through my head. Like, again, like, is this safe? Like, I'm driving my family outside of San Diego to stay in an RV in someone's driveway that I've never met before? Like, is this a good idea? And I'm really starting to second guess myself. And I'm like, what am I doing? What are we doing? Like, this is crazy. And so we get in the driveway, we walk up to the door, I knock on the door, they open it up. Hey, I'm Tara and Steve. Hi, I'm Nick. Nice to meet you. They're like, there's your place to stay. Wow, okay. And so fast forward to the end of the week, we have a lot of cool conversations and time together in the little time that we had in the evenings there. And it's the last morning, and we're kind of hanging out, getting ready. They're eating breakfast, and I walk into the house. Taryn and Story are in there. She's walking around, and she had walked up to their daughter, and her daughter's, she's like a freshman in college, and they had 2 daughters. But she walks up to one of their daughters, and Story just puts her hands up for her to like pick her up. And so she like picks her up, and I walk in, and the daughter's like carrying Story around, and the daughter was like, oh, she just wanted me to pick her up. And the mom was like, of course, we're family. And I was like, wow. And that never would have happened if I played it safe and said, I don't stay with strangers. That's not a safe way to operate, right? But I stepped out, and let alone they stepped out, okay? They had just as much to lose that I did, right? Like, they offered somebody. They didn't know me. They never met me. But they still offered up their home to me. And I look at that, and I'm like, wow, that's a perfect example of something I want to talk about today, and that is that safety is overrated. Security is like something, yeah, it sounds really good, but I don't think that should be our main goal in life. I really think we should be striving for some more things. And that, you know, security is not bad, and safety is not bad, but if that's our main goal, we'll see pretty soon from a story here in Scripture that can get us off track real quick. So bow your heads with me, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this beautiful day and for the Sabbath. And I ask for your presence here as we open up your word and as we walk through this story in the Old Testament and try to discern what it is that you're trying to teach us through it. So open our hearts and minds today to what you're doing. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Turn with me, if you have your Bibles, to the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 11 is where I want to go with you this morning. Genesis 11. So, I have to keep like not forgetting that you guys are there, so sorry. Genesis 11. Here we go. And I'd just like to read through it really quick, and then we're going to just walk through it piece by piece. All right? So Genesis 11, starting in verse 1. It says, "Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. And as men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar, and they settled there. And they said to each other, 'Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly.' They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered all over the face of the whole earth.' In verse 5, it says, 'But the Lord came down to the city and the tower that the men were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And come, let us go down and confuse their language, and so they will not understand each other.' And so the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it's called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. And from there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth." And so this is an interesting story. There's so much in here that at first glance we kind of miss it. Like, it's kind of like, it's a quick story, it moves very quickly, and then boom, we're going into the story of Abraham. You know, we come out of the flood, oh, there was a tower, there was a city, and now we're talking about Abraham. But if we pause for a moment, we see a lot of cool things in this story. For instance, some subtle things. It says they were moving eastward, and they found this place called Shinar, and it says they settled there. And if you were to look up and study about this place, it's no doubt why they did that, because it was actually a really like fertile land. Like, it was a really beautiful land. Like, they came to it, and it was like, why not stay here? Like, it makes perfect sense. Let's just set up shop, you know? And so they settle. And then the next thing they know, they're like, well, let's build a city. You know, we're here. Let's continue this like settling in. And it says they use bricks instead of stones. And what's interesting is Moses is writing to the Israelites later that have come out of Egypt, and they know about building stuff with stones. But in this land, they don't have stones. But they got a lot of mud, right? And so they're like, I bet you we can make bricks. And so they figure out how to make bricks. And again, it moves very quickly. Oh, they made bricks, they built a city, they built a tower, and then boom, they're gone. But it's like, imagine for a moment how much they had to do just to make bricks. So they're putting all this stuff together, they're putting their resources together, their efforts and their hard work, and they're going for it. And we often look at the tower and the city as in like, oh, that was the defiance. But recognize that it was actually started and began at where it says they settled there. Because God's purpose was that for them to go, to move, to fill the whole earth. But they wanted to stop. You guys know, like, I could tell you stories. You could tell me stories of how we're like, okay, God has a plan, and then we have a plan. And sometimes, like, we just go with ours for some reason, but we try to fit, like, God's into it. And, like, how does that work out? I know from my experience, like, not so good. But I think in their minds, they're like, I have a plan. Like, I have a good idea. This is a logical place to settle down. Like, this is a good spot. So let's go for it. And so they make this gradual step of settling and building bricks, and it leads to building this city. And so we get to the city, and they're building, and it says, come, let us build for ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So notice the attention is, let's make a name for ourselves. Let us do this. We can accomplish this. This is going to be awesome. Like, people are going to come from all over and look at our tower and say, you guys are awesome. Like, this is really amazing. And so that's what they're looking for. And they go there, and basically, if you look at it, this is their plan B. All right? God's plan was go scatter, go fill the earth. But they're like, I'd rather settle here and build walls and be safe. Right? And be safe because what just happened before this? You guys remember? There's a huge flood. But God said, look, I'm not going to do that again. But part of the reason they're building this tower is they're thinking, hey, if that happened again, maybe we can build this tower high enough that we'd be okay. And so now already they're thinking, I know God said, but I'm pretty smart. I think I got a better way. God said I'm going to be fine, but just in case, let me set up myself to make sure that I'm safe either way. And there's this author, Francis Chan, in a book called Crazy Love. He says some very cool things, some very convicting things. Things that are not easy to hear, but things that I think that we need to take into account. He says, for instance, Christians today like to play it safe. We want to put ourselves in situations where we are safe even if there is no God. Another way he says it, in another spot, is we try to set up our lives so everything will be fine even if God doesn't come through. And that's exactly what they're doing right here. They're saying, I know God said there's not going to be a flood, but let's say there is. We got the tower, we're good, we're golden. We don't have to worry. And so we do these things. And so the question that comes to us is, what are we building? What are our towers? What are our cities? What bricks are we putting together and setting our security up for our future, saying, God, I know that you have a hope and a future for me, but I want to make sure that I'm good in case everything falls apart. What are those things? And it could be something simple to something big. I know I've looked at transitions in my life, especially in transitions, moving from one thing to the other, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And it's I got to really trust God. But in the midst of that, a lot of times I've often just trusted myself. And it doesn't always work out that good. I was talking with Don Reeder this last week, a couple days ago, about this, what I'm going to talk about today, and just asking him for feedback. And I told him that this is a small example of towers we build, okay? Even when I go to preach a sermon, I don't want to settle on something until I know that I have it mapped out. I know where it's headed. I don't want to commit to, hey, Nick, will you preach? Yeah, hold on, I'll get back to you. And then when I know that I have something, I'll be like, yeah, I'll preach. Instead of oh, maybe God's calling me to preach. I don't know what he's telling me to say, but let's go on this journey and step out in faith. I have a really hard time doing that. And this week, God's messing with me because Wednesday I had an idea, and Thursday he's like, this is what you're doing. And so, but that's better. That's way cooler than going with my own plan and knowing everything ahead of time. God says, go and fill the earth. And they're like, wait, hold up, what's the next step? And he's like, I got you, just go for it. And so it can be small ways like that, but there's these things that we build that distract us from what God is really trying to do. Ellen White says what the purpose was and how they got distracted from it. She says this perfectly. She says, in talking about this story, she says, it was God's purpose that as men should go forth to found nations in different parts of the earth, they should carry with them the knowledge of his will, that the light of truth might shine undimmed to succeeding generations. That was the goal. And the tower and the city distracted them from it, was to go with the knowledge of the will of God and to shine the light undimmed to succeeding generations. If that tower had been completed, God knew that everybody that came there would see that and know that man is powerful. That why do we need God when we can accomplish this? That was not only taking them away, but generations after them. They would have seen that and said, yeah, you're right. Why do we need God? Why should we trust in him? Because we can accomplish so many things together without him. But the goal is to spread the light of God over the whole earth. And so he scattered us, and he says, look, I want you to be lights in different places, in your communities, in your neighborhoods, wherever you find yourself, in your job, in your school, to let that light shine undimmed so that you set up for future generations to come back and say, wow, God is here. God is for real. His promises come true. He stays true to his word. but we distract ourselves too often from that. And this is a cool part in the story. In verse 6, I love this. It says, the Lord said this, all right? So this is the Lord speaking. If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And that's really cool to me, not because of what they're doing, because what they're doing is wrong. That's really cool to me that God is saying these people come together and they unify and they have a common purpose. And he says, I can tell already that if they keep going down that road, they can do anything they want. And he's saying that to people that are apart from his will. Imagine what we, the church, can do if we unify, if we come together under one common goal, one common purpose. Jesus says there's nothing that we can't do. Nothing will be impossible for you. Because with God, all things are possible. And so we look at this and we're like, man, if they can do that, and if God says they can do that, then yes, this is why he builds the church. He says he's not calling necessarily individuals, but he calls individuals to get together in one common purpose, one common goal, and say, go for it. Let that light shine undimmed. Let people see the God of all the world and see that he's for real, that his promises are sure. And that's what he's called us to. Look in Acts. This is in contrast to Genesis 11. In Acts chapter 2 is this really cool picture of the early church. Acts chapter 2. And it's coming right after Pentecost, all right, which is almost an exact contrast to the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel, he confuses their language so they'll move out and accomplish his goal of going out to the nations. In Pentecost, he comes and he gives them different languages so that they could spread the gospel all over the whole earth. Same thing happening, but he's kind of reversing it. And he goes and he does this, and he says, go out, spread the gospel. Let the light shine, undimmed. And he goes, and they set up, and it says in verse 42, that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, and to the fellowship, and to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All of the believers were together, and they had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So you have this group of people that are coming together and living life together. And it says that miraculous signs are taking place. Beautiful things are happening. Relationships are being built. All this stuff is going on. It says daily people were coming into that number because they couldn't deny that what they had was amazing. And recognize this and contrast it again to Genesis 11, where they were setting themselves up to be safe in their eyes and in their minds. And here, it says they sold all their possessions and they gave to everyone who had need. That's not a safe thing to do. The world says if you want to be secure and you want to be safe, make a lot of money, store it up so you can live life, that you'll be good when you retire, or all these different things, set yourself up so that your future is secure. And here, they're selling everything, it says. Hey, do you need something? All right, well, I don't have it right now, but let me go sell my car, and I can hook you up. That's what they're doing. That's not a safe way to live, but it's a really cool way to live, and it's the way that God has called the church to live, then and today as well. So again, safety is overrated. If that's our goal as people and as a church, then I think we're going to miss it. We're going to get off track real quick. And we're going to have cities and we're going to have towers to point to, but they would have been our own doing. They would have been our own purposes and our own plans and our own goals, and we would have missed everything that God had for us. I met this guy in San Diego a couple weeks ago. I go and visit his church. It's in downtown San Diego. I go on a Tuesday afternoon, And I go in there, and I was the first one to show up. My whole class went. And I was the first one to show up. And I get there, and the outside of the building, like there's people everywhere. And they're lined up. And they're lined up for the church. So they're wrapping around the church building. And it's like all these homeless people. And they're getting ready because the church, and I walk in the back, and the church is back there cooking. And they got all these people coming in. And they're getting ready to serve food to the people of downtown San Diego. And I was like, on a Tuesday afternoon, I was like, this is beautiful. Like, this is really cool. And then I start talking to the pastor. His name's Pastor John. And I realized that Pastor John has caught on to this idea that safety is overrated because he's telling us stories about what he does in downtown San Diego. And he's basically saying, we're committed to the homeless people here where our church is located. And I'm not saying this is what we need to do. I'm saying they've recognized where are we at and what can we do? What is God doing? How can we join them here in downtown San Diego? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. But how he answered that was, let's serve and be committed to the homeless people in downtown. And so they're doing this, and they commit themselves. He taught our class, and he's like, I'm leaving right after class, and I'm going downtown again because the police have started writing all these encroachment tickets to the homeless people. And the homeless people are coming, and they have just one thing on the sidewalk. They're writing tickets to them, and which eventually they get enough tickets, they get jailed. And all these different things. And the Pastor John's like, that's not cool. So he goes out there and he stands up for the people that can't stand up for themselves, even against the police. And I'm like, you're crazy. But again, he's like, and his friends, if you talk to his friends, they were joking. They're like, hey, we need to set up a Keep Pastor John Out of Jail fund. And they were not joking. They were for real because they knew that what he was doing, he's really involved and he's doing stuff. And he's stepping out in faith, and they're like, he could end up in jail someday because he's standing up for people. He told us, and he's like, this is not the right way to handle it, but he walked up to a police officer writing a ticket to a homeless person, and he said, you're immoral. That's the first thing he said to him. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's and not the right way to handle it, but he's out there, and he said that started a 40-minute conversation with that police officer about what was going on in downtown San Diego, what should be happening, and what were the two sides. He had a side, and he's like, I'm trying to help the homeless people. The police officer's like, I'm trying to do the same thing. And they're trying to go back and forth and try to figure this out, but he's moving, and he's active, and he's stepping out in faith, and he knows that at the end of the day, maybe someone has to come bail him out from jail. But he's felt a call from God, and he's seen a need, and him and his church are committed to filling it. And I can only I could tell stories about this church and things that we've done. And I can't wait for the stories that are going to come and the things that this church is going to do. We're in transition right now. We have a pastor coming. And we have some great things ahead of us. I really believe that. Really, really cool stuff. And I'm so excited to be on that journey with you all. And so I can't wait for that. An example, another practical example of not playing it safe. Relationships aren't necessarily safe either. When you take time to know somebody and engage them and enter into their story, that's not a safe thing to do. Because I can tell you story after story of where I've decided to do that, and it's led me to bedsides in hospitals. It's led me to praying for people to be healed that were never healed. It's led me to so many broken places, some funerals, because I decided to get into somebody's story. But it's also led me to birthday parties and to weddings and to baby dedications and celebrations. And so it's messy with relationships, but God says, look, I know it's not safe and it's kind of sketchy to get to know somebody, but that's how I want you to live your life. Because when you do that and you engage people and you come together, there isn't anything that you can't accomplish together. And so, for example, Thanksgiving's coming up, and we have Thanksgiving baskets that were just talked about, and we have 25 names. Amen, right? That's 25 people or 25 families that we know that we're going to bless this Thanksgiving season. We should celebrate that, all right? And the other thing that I'm excited about is we have 25 names, but we'd like to give away 80. That's not playing it safe. Playing it safe would be how many names do we have? 25? Okay, cool, let's do 25. But we have a really cool church, and they said, let's do 80. We don't have 80 names, but let's do 80. And so we step out in faith. And the only way we're going to get those names, if we go out and we don't play it safe, and we take the risk of getting to know somebody in our neighborhood and in our community and say, who are you? What's your story? Are you in need? Because my church is super cool, and we can hook you up with a Thanksgiving basket. And so we know, and I believe we're going to get 80, all right? So we know that come Thanksgiving, there's going to be 80 plus people that are saying, I'm so glad God moved people in the Campion church so that I could have a meal. And we get to be a part of that. Not because we're worthy, but because we're coming together and we're saying, God, what do you want us to do? Let's do that. So that's really, really cool. That's something that we can do, and that's awesome. The last thing I want to end with is it says that basically when he breaks them up, they stopped building the city, and they stopped building the tower, and they walked away. Not because they wanted to, and they should have, but God caused that to happen. And for this to actually happen the fact is we're building stuff. We've already started making bricks to build stuff. And I can't tell you what yours are, and you don't know what mine are, but we have our things that we're building to set up our security and our future. But God's saying, stop. And let's walk away, leaving unfinished buildings in our wake, saying we want to follow God's plan and not our plan. And that's not easy, because that means stopping something that we've already started. And so the other hard question we have to ask ourselves is have we started something that's not part of God's will, individually or as a church? God, do we need to stop that? That's super difficult, but if you have something better for us to do, we want to do it. And that's a scary prayer to pray. That's a scary question to ask. But that's what he's calling us to do. Francis Chan also writes, our greatest fear as individuals and as a church should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter. God has a plan and a purpose for each and every one of us and for us as a church. And he's saying, look, if you guys get together and you have the cause of Christ and one common goal, one common purpose, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Go do that. There might be some things we have to stop, and it's going to be hurt, and it's going to be like, I have to set my pride aside and say, I really wanted to see that through, but that's not what God's calling us to. And to be bold enough to call those things out and say, let's walk away from this, and let's move forward for the cause of Christ. So again, I'm excited, and we're going some great places in the future, and we got a lot of stories coming that are yet to tell. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for these stories in Scripture, even ones like Genesis 11, where people didn't quite get it right, but we can identify with them because we have our own faults, and we thank you for sticking with us despite those. So go with us. Give us boldness to go out and not let safety be our main goal, but to walk by faith. Not knowing the next step, but knowing that you're in charge. Knowing that you're calling us forward, that you're leading us and you're guiding us. And let us walk boldly into this world. And let's let the light shine undimmed. Lord, may we go from this place hearing your spirit and your purpose for our lives and as a church. And we want to follow it. Give us strength and faith to do so. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.